Welcome to SO 306, Study Session 1. Overview of School Social Work. Introduction. In this study session, we shall examine what school social work entails and how school social workers started in the United States of America in the early 1900s, when they were called friendly visitors or visiting teachers till current period. We shall also examine the major functions of school social work and other aspects that are directly related to the major function of school social work. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Define and use correctly the term school social work. 2. Outline the history of school social work in the United States of America. 3. Explain the major functions of school social work. School social work. School social work takes place in school settings where practitioners work with students, families, other school personnel, and communities to provide the best education possible for today's youth. It is a specialized field that focuses on services to children, youth, and families, which are social work services provided in a school-based setting. Such services are advantageous for many reasons. First, they allow the social worker to see the child or adolescent in a natural setting where they interact with peers, teachers, and school administrators. Second, they allow the social worker to access large numbers of children and families in need of services, especially children between the ages 5 and 18. Third, the services allow the social worker to help parents and school personnel to use a systems approach to leverage the needs of the child, focusing on the relationships between the child, the home, the school, and the broader community. Often, in school, the focus of the staff is on academic performance and school behavior. A social worker with a systems perspective can help school personnel understand the importance of family and community variables in relation to the child's capacity to function in the school setting. School social workers strive to improve the overall functioning of students, teachers, school systems, and communities. They address conditions that interfere with the pupil's ability to connect with the educational system. Helen Mears, 2008, Constable, 1999. School social workers must be skilled and flexible because they assume a wide range of roles and usually must define their key functions within their own school setting. Constable, 2002. School social work involves not only providing clinical services such as counseling for students who have behavioral problems, who are depressed, or who are experiencing family difficulties. It also entails working with multiple systems with which students are involved to strengthen them and make it easier for students to perform in the school environment. Students in colleges and universities require substantial concentration and effort to succeed in a school environment. This is also true for students in lower stages of the educational process. One of the first things to suffer when a child experiences social and emotional problems is school performance and attendance. Such a child simply does not have the strength and endurance to expand the emotional energy required to cope with serious personal problems and still have enough energy left over to perform well in school, as school is given a lower priority. School social worker then may become major players in developing an empowering plan for such children in collaboration with their families, teachers, school administration, and social services agencies within the community. If students are interested in a social work career in the area of child and family services, there are a number of child welfare and child family journals, as well as numerous books on all areas discussed in this lecture, readily available. In addition, since many child and family service programs have volunteer programs, volunteer experience also will help students determine if they are interested in this area, as well as provide sound social work experience. Generally speaking, the school social worker serves the children whose emotional problems interfere with their use of the school's experience. Does not include all children who exhibit some symptoms of difficulty in school from time to time, but only those children whose degree of the symptoms indicate a need for help. Some of the symptoms are school achievements below ability level, attendance illness without physical cause, crying excessively, shyness, withdrawn behavior, overdependence on others, extreme restlessness, aggressive and hostile behavior, conflict with authority, difficulties with other children, evidence of parental neglect, and so on. Many children having difficulties at school show a combination of several symptoms. These problems usually reflect conflict in families, relationships, unwholesome community conditions, financial difficulties, and other social or emotional problems. Historical overview of social school work in United States of America. Early period. Costing 1969. Note that school social work began at about the same time, although independently, in 3 cities: New York, Boston, and Hartford during the school year 1906 to 07. It further indicates that these initial services were provided not in the school but in private agencies and civic organizations in the community. Although schools eventually agreed to administer and support some of these early efforts, the first instance of a school system establishing such services was in 1913 in Rochester, New York. As these services expanded, practitioners began to organize themselves, and the National Association of Visiting Teachers was established in 1921. The growth of the services was through the passage of compulsory school attendance laws, which led to an early emphasis on attendance, as well as the prevention of the exploitation of students through child labor. In addition, new knowledge about children's individual needs and coping abilities allowed social workers to help teachers understand how particular external factors affected children's ability to learn. Helen Mears, 1988. In the 1920s, the focus of school social work shifted to preventing juvenile delinquency in order to make the work of school more effective. The Commonwealth Fund, individual boards of education, and the National Association of Visiting Teachers were responsible for establishing many new positions in urban and rural areas in which social workers acted as home school community liaisons. Another influence on the development of school social work during the 1920s was the mental hygiene movement, which led school social workers to assist in the diagnosis and treatment of nervous and difficult children. Costing, 1969, page number. And to focus on understanding the relationship of students' emotional reactions to their achievements and overall performance in school. During the 1930s, services emphasized the physical needs of students in response to the Great Depression and the accompanying adverse social conditions. Reading, 1989. Middle period. From 1940 to 1960, another shift in school social work services occurred because of the proliferation of federal programs providing for many basic needs of families. During this period, school social work became an integral part of the school system, and its focus shifted from negative school and community conditions to a clinical orientation. Reading, 1989. The change contributed to the prestige of school social worker and removed much of the stigma attached to them as truant officers. Reading, 1989. Casework services were provided to individual students to help resolve their maladjustments. The refinement of practice methods and techniques became a primary goal of school social workers during this period. Costing, 1987. Then, in response to major social conditions that affected an increasing number of children and youth in the 1960s, the emphasis again shifted, this time to collaboration with other school personnel to change the school as a social system. However, research on practitioners' tasks indicated that some school social workers failed to make the transition to policy making and leadership that was necessary to change the system, continuing instead to focus on casework to individual students and parents. Reading, 1989, states that the further development of systems theory and the ecological perspective in the 1970s helped increase attention to the complex problems of schools and communities, including racism and students' rights. Current period. The focus on students' rights and cultural diversity has naturally led to a new emphasis on parental involvement and school community family partnerships since 1980. Winters and Malucio, 1988. In addition, Costin, 1987, notes that school practice is involved more in pupils' right in relation to such matters as discipline, for example, corporal punishment, suspension and expulsion, curricular tracking, placement into special education classes, and access to pupils' school records. This has been responsible for the active involvement of parents in the assessment and decision-making process through conferences on their children's individualized education plans. This has also changed how school social workers practice by including them as a related service, as mediators in conflict about educational decisions, as providers of information to parents about programs and services, and as presenters of mental health services in the classroom. Halderson et al., 1990. Functions of the school social workers. The school social worker's role is multifaceted: assessment and consultation with the school team, direct work with children and parents individually and in groups, program and policy development, and so on. In 1989, a group of 19 nationally recognized experts in school social work were asked to develop and list the tasks that entry-level social workers will be able to perform in their day-to-day professional roles. The result was a list of 104 tasks, which is evidence of the complexity of school social work. These tasks, when they were defined, fell along 5 job dimensions. 1. Relationships with and services to children and families. 2. Relationships with and services to teachers and school staff. 3. Services to other school personnel. 4. Community services. And 5. Administrative and professional tasks. Nelson, 1990. Further research on these roles, tasks, and skills found 4 of school social work to be both very important and frequently performed. 1. consultation with others in the school system, and the teamwork relationship that make consultation possible. 2. Assessment applied to a variety of different roles in direct services, in consultation, and in program development. 3. Direct work with children and parents in individual, group, and family modalities. 4. Assistance with program development in schools. Constable Kuzim Kite, Arisin and Volksman, 1999. A key skill, the foundation of all other areas in assessment. Assessment is a systematic way of understanding what is taking place in relationships in the classroom, within the family, and between the family and school, and looking for ways to make changes. The social worker looks for units of attention, places where intervention will be most effective. Assessment as a broader process provides the basis for program development and policy formulation in a school. It is often a more formal process, utilizing many of the tools of research geared toward the development of programs and policies that meet the needs of children in school, and applying such to the experiences of groups of children in school. Study session summary. In this study session, you learned that school social workers are part of the educational team. They work with teachers, administrators, counselors, psychologists, nurses, and parents to integrate information from all these sources with the students' overall social, emotional, behavioral, and adaptive functioning at schools. They make use of assessment, counseling, collaboration, and consultation to provide unique services to students, parents, school, and community. We also trace the history of school social work in the United States of America, the major focus of school social work in the 1920s, the middle period, and current period. We ended the study session by discussing the major functions of school social work. We have come to the end of study session 1. Thanks for listening.